Welcome to another Theory Thursday. I am the Theoretical Theorist, and it is indeed Thursday. It is now 2:38 a.m. and yeah, it's Thursday morning. Doing this at the last minute. This is kind of something that I didn't know exactly how I was going to tackle. This is actually my second shot of this. I wanted to make sure that I got this right, because this is really, really important. It's going to kind of set the standard for the rest of the overarching theory. Honestly, this was going to come in so many different forms. This is a really more short and direct one. I not so much of the flashiness and stuff like that. I was going to do some weird stuff. But let's just kind of get into it. Again, we are continuing on from our previous theories, and I will kind of go over a recap of what we have discussed, as I have done in fashion in the last couple of videos. I'm dropping stuff. Anyways, so our first video was about what actually happened with the timeline. Because I think there's some mistakes on exactly why the timeline split. Not exactly when or how, but specifically the why. Because I think people more focus on the people going back, not as much as the Triforce pieces themselves separating in timelines. Kind of like the endgame, explanation. You take one out and it creates another timeline. That kind of thing. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, the next part is the paths. Specifically, we discussed that each timeline path kind of had an overarching theme. In the Downfall timeline, it was fire, rain, and power. In the Wisdom timeline, it was, flooding the I'm blanking on the country, or whatever you want to call it. God, I'm kingdom. Until we were ready to go and fight, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, in the Courage, you have the overarching theme of Link and his descendants and stuff kind of going on adventures. And then we have the Convergence, which is an ongoing theory in the community. A lot of different Zelda tubers, as they are called, mention this and talk about this, but it's basically the theory that all the timelines have now converged. They are now myth, and that's why we're getting Breath of the Wild in the way that it is. This also has some other examples in different games. In the Elder Scrolls series, they're called Dragon Breaks, where essentially everything happened at the same time, but now the timelines are together. It's a really interesting concept. And it would fit. So I'm kind of leading credits, so that's most likely at least the bare minimum of this theory. What's going to be right? But I think it all is. It's a very interesting thing. And so that brings us to our fourth video. Because now that we know that there's been the split, what happened during the split, what kind of it meant, what kind of themes were set, and that it's conversed, we really need to go back to the beginning and examine what maybe we might have gotten wrong along the way. As most of you guys probably already know, Skyward Sword was recently re-released in an HD version for the Switch. So everybody's probably going to be playing through this. So this is going to kind of hit home. So today we're actually going to be talking about what Zelda was planning, or not Zelda specifically, but Hylia, the goddess, and what happened, and how that actually affects everything, and maybe some stuff that we might have missed on the surface as to why things happened the way. So today we're going to be talking about what we got wrong. Alright. So, first of all, Hylia's plan. Let's establish this. I know it's kind of backwards on the screen, but bear with me. First, she was going to create Fi to help the hero, right? Because she was in the war, got wounded, had a, seal away demise. She didn't think that was going to last. So, she created Fi. He's supposed to help the hero find the Triforce pieces, gather his wisdom, courage, and power, and then, do his deeds. Second thing that she was going to do, she was actually going to give up her life as a goddess and be reincarnated as a human, so she could then go and use the Triforce to stop demise. Because, again, she didn't think her seal was going to last forever. So this was kind of her failsafe on how she wanted to defeat him. And that's really important, because that was her plan. And we're going to get to that, because it kind of happened a little bit different. What actually happened, Hylia indeed does become human after she creates Fi. The only difference, and it's a stark difference, is that Link is the one that uses the Triforce to defeat Demise. And this might seem on surface level totally inconsequential, but anybody that knows much about the Triforce is that it changes intent, and also weighs the person in their actual intentions. Power, courage, wisdom, that kind of stuff. You can look it up. It's all out there. So it's interesting that he was the one that actually ended up using to defeat Demise, and concurrently, immediately, it was thwarted by time travel. But anyways, why is this important? It's a good question. I asked myself this for a really long time, but it was almost too obvious once I started getting into it. So we have to really, to understand the ramifications, we have to understand 2 simple facts, okay? Well, 3, technically. Start with these 2. 1, Hylia was a goddess. Even in spirit, she was still a goddess. She was going to keep on living and reincarnating like she does through all the games that we know. Link, on the other hand, was not. And I think we have to determine or distinguish the difference between Hylia's reincarnation, where it's literally the Hylia goddess spirit or whatever, and the spirit of the hero reincarnating, because I don't think they're the same thing. One is literally a goddess being reincarnated. The other is just a reoccurrence, essentially. I mean, it's just essentially, DNA lined up, and they had the same morals and, courage, wisdom, power. That's essentially what makes the hero. And it's a reoccurrence. It's not so much a resurrection. And neither is his demise. I know it's like a side note and everything, but it's not. That's also going to come into a really, really important thing later. We'll get back to that. But I want everybody to understand that Hylia is a goddess, Link is not. Alright? So, yes, there's more. It's a little bit longer of a one. I'm trying to stretch it a little bit for you guys so it's not just boring. The fact, and it's a fact, the wish actually only lasts until the person who made the wish passes away. I actually didn't know this at first. It's obviously in games, so it should have been obvious. But I didn't know. It just wasn't something that was on the tip of my tongue, if I could say. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know. You know what I mean? I know that probably sounds stupid. But it really does. It only lasts until the person that makes the wish on the Triforce is dead. So it's almost pointless for anyone else besides Hylia to make the wish. Yeah, that's right. And this is kind of going to be the segue into next week's videos, which is aptly titled Link's Failures, because there are several. But I really want to talk about this for a second. Hylia was the only one who could make the wish, and it would last. And she kind of tried to dupe the Triforce here. She couldn't use it as a goddess, but she knew if she reincarnated herself as a human, her goddess spirit, her spirit of wisdom, whatever you want to call it, would keep on living. And I think she thought that would trick the Triforce and essentially let the wish last for on, because if it didn't, then he would just be coming back in 80 years or however long Hylians live. I have no idea off the top of my head. Anyways, so I think she was doing that intentionally. I think she knew that because she was the spirit of the goddess, that when she cast it, it wasn't it wasn't Zelda casting, it was Hylia casting the wish, because there's that whole dynamic of the personality changing and her becoming Hylia, at least on the surface. Again, we're going to be talking about that coming up. I know I've been teasing a lot of stuff this episode, I might even make another episode just so we can get some more out of this, because this next part's really, really juicy, and I really want to get to it. But I don't think I can stress this enough. The Link messed up. Like, really, really messed up. And it's all because of the way the Triforce looks at everything. You know, it looks at the heroes, wisdom, power, courage. And then, whether they're good or evil doesn't matter. And it makes the wish. So I definitely think that Hylia making the wish on her wisdom side of things would be technically wishing for something other than the person who has courage, wisdom, and power. In fact, I think it kind of ties into how the rest of the game's storylines go about. Instead of demolishing him and taking him out from existence, essentially he sets up adventures for the rest of his descendants with his wish. That's what he did. And I don't think it was intentional. It's just, again, the Triforce kind of, takes some bit of you, and translates it onto your wish, which is really interesting. You can see it throughout, Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, segue into the next week's episodes, or later today, maybe. Link's failures. It's going to be a great episode. There's a lot of them, and some important ones, and it's going to be getting into the really, 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 really juicy bits about all this. So once again, I appreciate you guys stopping by for another Theory Thursday. I am the Theoretical Theorist, and I'll catch you all soon.